أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء، العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكره ولا ينقص من شكره ولا يخيب من دعاه ولا يقطع رجاء من رجاه. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله الطاهرين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a great honor to be here with you during this first half of Shahr Ramadan. It's an opportunity for all of us that we should really thank Allah for. A very special night now that we've entered this holy month. The fact that Allah has blessed us with another Shahr Ramadan. I'm sure we all know at least one person, if not many, who were with us last year and are no longer with us. But Allah has granted us the tawfiq, the life, the health, to witness another Shahr Ramadan, which we shouldn't take for granted. But for those who are no longer with us, let us remember them with a Surah Al-Fatiha. When it comes to Shahr Ramadan, amongst the ulama, there are those who regard Shahr Ramadan as the beginning of their year. When we think of the beginning of the year, the first month that comes to our mind is January. Maybe when we think of the Islamic year, we think of Muharram. But amongst the ulama, there are those who say that Shahr Ramadan is actually the beginning of their spiritual year. It is the beginning of that year where they will now strive to get closer to Allah, inshallah. And we are all blessed with this opportunity again, whereby we can also join that effort and strive towards Allah. There are times during the year when we are doing the same. We are striving to Allah. We're trying to get closer to Allah. But just like when we play snakes and ladders, you know, when you play snakes and ladders, sometimes there are those huge ladders where when you come to it, suddenly you skip like 50 spaces. Shahr Ramadan is like one of those, where we've been trying over the last few months to get closer and closer to Allah. It's opportunities like this that allows us to go through a real boost. Inshallah, we've all been preparing. The month of Rajab came, the month of Sha'ban came, and now the month of Shahr Ramadan is here as well. What was the purpose of the month of Rajab? What was the purpose of the month of Sha'ban? We're told time and again that these are the months of preparation for Shahr Ramadan. In fact, the beginning of Shahr Ramadan is a preparation for the night of Qadr, which is what we are told in the Quran, in our du'as, better than 1,000 months. Is it really a case of these times having significance for us? Or is it just Allah saying to us, look, you know, we haven't really had Shahr Ramadan for 11 months now. We need to just, make sure everything's working, the system's okay, testing, 1, 2, 3. Or is there a reality behind it? Allah doesn't need testing 1, 2, 3. There's a reality behind the month of Rajab. There's a reality behind the month of Sha'ban, which helps us to prepare for Shahr Ramadan. But maybe it's too late. What if my Shahr Rajab didn't go so well? What if my month of Sha'ban didn't go so well? Like every year I have this regret that the month passed and I didn't really achieve much. The second month passed, I still didn't achieve much. Sometimes we tend to justify it, don't we? We say it's okay because the month of Ramadan is even better than those months. In fact, the night of Qadr is better than 1,000 months. How about I just save all my energy for that month? How about I just save all my energy and my effort for Laylatul Qadr? Better than 1,000 months. We're all businessmen over here. If you were told, for example, that you get a business transaction which will give you 10% profit, that's Shahr Rajab. And then you get another transaction which is 20% profit. That's the month of Sha'ban. Then Shahr Ramadan comes, you get 50% profit. But if you're to wait till Laylatul Qadr, you'll get 10,000% profit. What would you do? You'd wait for that month. But we're not very good businessmen, are we? Because the real thing that we should have done is invest the money in Shahr Rajab. Get the 10% profit and use that as the capital for the next investment. This is exactly what these months are for. The month of Rajab has a significance of its own, but the idea is that we can use it to build our capital for the next month. We use Shahr Sha'ban and we get a benefit that we use as the capital now for Shahr Ramadan. And all these days that are coming, inshallah, that we've been blessed with, be it 19 days, 21 days, 23 days, they're all in preparation for Laylatul Qadr. In the khutbah that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he gives at the end of the month of Sha'ban, he terms the month of Ramadan as Diyafatullah. He says this is the banquet of Allah. And I know, again, we think, what kind of a banquet is this? I mean, he's inviting me, but I have to stay hungry. But we don't realize that there's a different type of food. There's a different type of benefit that comes here. This diyafatullah, this banquet that Allah is inviting us for, the reason for preparing for it, what we notice is that the khutbah that the Prophet gave in Sha'ban, he didn't give it in the month of Ramadan, did he? He didn't wait till the first night of Shahr Ramadan or the first day of Shahr Ramadan for giving that khutbah. He gives it in Sha'ban, telling you that there is a preparation involved. Why is it that we need to prepare to go for a banquet? Well, if we think of it this way, that usually when we have a transaction with Allah, we're trying to get as much as we can out of it, right? That's a successful transaction. We have verses of the Quran that talk about this. How we need to try and make the best transaction with Allah. When it comes to Shahr Ramadan, it's also a transaction with Allah. But if we're going to the banquet and taking our cup with us, or taking our plate with us, and we want to fill it to the top, sometimes we need to take a step back and say, hold on a second. Isn't it better that I take a big plate? Isn't it better that I take a big cup to fill? You know, sometimes we feel like drinking tea. But sometimes we feel like drinking tea. You open the cupboard, you don't take out that small cup, you take out that big cup. Now it's going to become like a ceremony. You want to fill that cup to the full, but you want to fill a big cup. This is exactly what these last 2 months were for. But if we haven't managed to make the most of it, those 2 months, it's still not too late. Why? Because we are preparing for Laylatul Qadr now. If you look at our du'as, it talks about Shahr Ramadan, but it also says one night has been chosen, and that is the night of Qadr. And that's what we want to work for. Basically, what we want to do is make this investment. That on Laylatul Qadr, we don't just take a cup to fill to the full, but we want to take a very big cup and fill that to the full. I'll give you an example that one of the Mufassirin, Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, probably our top most Mufassir in the Shia world, who's written a tafsir of the Quran which is 80 volumes that just came to a completion just a couple of years ago. He explains to us that when you think of the month of Ramadan, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? When we think of it, the month of Ramadan is coming, it is the month of, we think of fasting. Maybe some of us think it's the month of iftar. No, it's the month of fasting. But in actual fact, the Quran doesn't define it through the month of fasting. In the verse that we recited at the beginning, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The identity of the month is none other than the Quran itself. Even Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr is identified through the Quran. الذي أنزل فيه القرآن for Shahr Ramadan in general. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر. Again talking about the night of Qadr being defined through the Quran. Now there's an extensive explanation that he gives regarding that. But what he says to us is that if the night is defined by the Quran, the only way we will be able to make the most of that night is through our relationship with the Quran. The more we are in touch with the Quran on that night, the more we will be able to get out of it. But the problem is that night's only a few hours. In reality, if I want to make the most of that night through the Quran, the preparation has to have started since the last Laylatul Qadr. It's only by building on that which we have and expanding our capacity that we can now ensure that we are bringing that bigger cup than it was last year. So this is just an example when it comes to Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr and the relationship that it has with the Quran, meaning that if I haven't started from last Laylatul Qadr in familiarizing myself with the Quran, reciting the Quran, learning from the Quran, then this Laylatul Qadr, in those few hours, I'm not going to achieve so much. But it's still not too late. Why? Because we know that Shahr Ramadan is also the spring of the Quran. Doesn't Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi tell us Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, that everything has a spring, and the spring of the Quran is Shahr Ramadan. Now think about the spring. The spring isn't the season when we start sowing the seeds, is it? The spring is that season where the fruits start coming, the plants start growing. The seeds have to be sown before. But if we haven't managed to do that, then at least from this night onwards, we can make a resolution to ourselves and say, before Laylatul Qadr comes, I'm going to build that relationship with the Quran, such that that night which is defined by the Quran, I'm going to make the most of it and get as much barakah as I can from that night. Now true, Laylatul Qadr is defined through the Quran, but it also uses the word Qadr, doesn't it? What is Qadr? We say it's the night of power, it's the night of destiny, it's the night of decree. But the most accurate definition would be, it's the night when everything is given its apportionment. It's the night when everything is given its measure. If we hear in the hadith, for example, that on the night of Qadr, everything is decreed. Everything is given its measure. How long I'm going to live, whether I'm going to reach the next Shahr Ramadan, whether I'm going to have children, whether I'm going to have a rizq, whether I'm going to have health, everything is being measured on that night. That is the Qadr there. What we want to do is make sure that the Qadr that we receive on that night is a big Qadr. We want to get barakah out of that night. It's Laylatun Mubarak. The only way we can do that is to start preparing from now. The beginning of Shahr Ramadan is in fact a preparation to make sure that we take that big cup, that capacity is there, and that Qadr we're supposed to be getting is as big as we can because we're preparing from now. Now there are other verses of the Quran that indicate this, not just about the Quran, but for example we have in Surah Al-Hajr or Hijr, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِنْدَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. The treasures and the stores of everything are with us, but we only send them down according to the capacity. And we can think of that in a material way. We have so many in the creation which are non-living, and Allah sends an amount which is suitable for them. Another verse explains this. أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَسَالَتْ أَوْدِيَةٌ بِقَدَرِهَا. You see the word qadr being used again. We send down the rain into the valleys and they flood according to their capacity. Whatever capacity they have, that's the amount that they're going to be filled. If they have a small capacity, they'll be given a small amount. If they have a big capacity, they'll have been given a big amount. This applies to us as well. When we look at the tafasir of these verses, it's not just to be taken in the example that is the most apparent. All of these apply to us. If we want our valleys to flood, if we want to make sure that the treasures of our rizq and our guidance and our knowledge pour down on us, we have to make sure that the vessel is big on that night. And that's what we're working towards. Why is it important that we have this capacity? Because we're only going to be given according to our capacity. On Thursday nights, we recite Dua Kumail. Why is it called Dua Kumail? It's called Dua Kumail because this is the dua that was taught by Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam to his companion Kumail. It wasn't taught to any other companion. It was taught to Kumail because Kumail had the capacity to take this dua on to the extent that now it's been named after him. In Shahr Ramadan, inshallah, we will be reciting Dua Abu Hamza Thimali. That's not really the name of the dua. It's been named after the companion to whom it was taught. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam recites this long dua, which takes us sometimes an hour to recite. But who does he give it to? He gives it to a companion who is able to take it. He has the capacity. And this was the sunnah of the prophets and the sunnah of the imams, where they say, نُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ عَلَى قَدْرِ أُقُولِهِمْ. We will speak to the people to the level, to the capacity of their understanding. These were companions who had that capacity. We want to increase our capacity so that we can get slightly closer to them. We can get something that we couldn't get last year because our capacity was less. But inshallah this year our capacity will be more. There's another example that shows why the capacity is so important. You may have heard of one of these companions coming to the Imam and asking him a complicated question. Those of you who've studied know it as a logical fallacy maybe. Saying that, is it possible for Allah to put the whole world into an egg without the world becoming smaller and without the egg becoming bigger? How does the Imam reply to this? In fact, there are two companions who ask the same question at different points. You see that the reply of the Imam is different. To the first one, he says, yes, of course he can do it. He already has done it. When you look around, do you not see the world? He says, yes, I do. Well, your eye is smaller than an egg, but yet it is able to contain more than the world. Now that is what we call a jadali reply. It's not based on logic, it's not gone philosophical. It's just a simple reply that is convincing that person because of the analogy that's given. But when the other companion comes, the Imam doesn't reply in the same way. He doesn't give the same answer. He says to him that you cannot ask questions about the ability of Allah when the thing itself is impossible. If something is possible, then you say, can Allah do it or can Allah not do it? But your question is wrong. The thing itself is impossible, so the ability of Allah is not even linked to this. This person has a slightly higher capacity. He's able to understand something more philosophical over here and see why the question itself was wrong. The Imam is replying based on the capacity of the people. In the same way, we have to understand that if we have a bigger capacity, then our relationship with Allah will change. If we understand that Allah is not only our helper in filling that cup, but He's also our helper in making that cup bigger, then the way we interact with Allah will be completely different. We see the example of this in Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam. Inshallah, you'll be reading about this story in 2 days' time, because the story comes in the 3rd juz, in Surah Al Imran, where Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam hasn't got a child and he's getting very old and he's praying to Allah for a child. But he reaches an old age, and then one day he goes to visit Maryam alayhi salam, and he sees that she has fruits which are not from that season. So he asks her, "Where did you get these fruits from?" And she replies that Allah grants to whomever He wishes without any measure. And so this probes Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam. It triggers him and makes him realize that so far I've just been praying in a certain way, maybe I need to pray in a different way. Mufassirin put it nicely. Prophet Zakaria saw there are fruits that are coming which are not in the season. He sees himself. He says, I've passed the season of having children now. But it doesn't matter, because Allah is the one who gives the capacity. And then we see that Allah grants him the child. He replies to him, Ya Zakaria, inna nubashiruka bi ghulamin ismuhu Yahya lam naj'al lahu min qablu samiyya. O Zakaria, we give you good news of a child, a son, whose name is Yahya, and no one has ever been named Yahya before. Qala, he says to Allah, similar to Prophet Ibrahim, he wants to know how. He's realized that Allah can do it, because so far I've been praying according to what I believe my capacity is. But Allah can increase my capacity. But he wants to know how. قَالَ رَبِّ أَنَّ يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ. How is it that I can have a child? وَكَانَتْ امْرَأَتِي آخِرَةً. Whilst my wife is barren. وَقَدْ بَلَغْتُ مِنَ الْكِبَرِ عِتِيًّا. And I have also reached an old age. قَالَ كَذَلِكَ قَالَ رَبُّكَ هُوَ عَلَيَّ هَيِّنٌ. It's going to be like that. Allah is saying that it's going to be easy for me. But the last part is very important. وَقَدْ خَلَقْتُكَ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ تَكُ شَيْئًا. I created you when you were nothing. I gave you that initial capacity. Don't you think that I'll also be able to increase that capacity now? And he gets this son. If we think about it, sometimes we also do dua like this, where it's restricted. In the back of our mind, we have, this is the cause, this is the effect. This is my life situation, and so this is how I'm going to ask you. For example, I want to build a relationship with the Quran this month. But I only have a certain amount of time. I'm working. I'll only be able to come on these particular days to recite Quran. I don't really understand the tafsir. I don't have the Arabic language. Now suddenly my dua is getting more and more restricted. I want to build a relationship with the Quran based on these restrictions. Based on these restrictions, please give me a translation that is quick to read. And you see how the dua becomes very specific now. Instead of looking at that greater goal, we start looking and restricting what Allah can give us by our life situation. But what if we pray to Allah the way we do in Rajab and in Sha'ban? You see the du'as in Rajab and Sha'ban, you say, give to me all the good of the hereafter and this world. We can pray like that. We can say, give me that relationship with the Quran such that I even learn the Arabic language, I have the time to do it, I'm understanding the tafsir, all of that. I want it all. In Shahr Ramadan, you'll see there's a trend in the du'as. There's something that we ask for in almost all of the du'as of Shahr Ramadan. What is it? Apart from istighfar, tawbah, there's something else that we ask for. Especially on the night of Qadr. What is it? وَارْزُقْنِي حَجَّ بَيْتِكَ الْحَرَامِ. How is our mindset when we are asking for that? Grant me the ability to go for Hajj this year. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, but I already have a holiday planned at that time. I'm not going to get time off work. I've got a small child that I need to look after. I'm not going to be able to take the child with me. Who's going to look after the child? Suddenly the dua becomes restricted. I'm not really asking for Hajj. I'm just repeating those words because it's in the dua. But what if we prayed in this way? Said, give me that Hajj and make the capacity such that I can do it. If I don't have time off work right now, you make it such that those obstacles are removed. If there's something like, a small child, make it such that the child can come with me or something. We shouldn't restrict Allah. Give me the capacity and then fill that capacity. Don't just pray to fill the current capacity. What is the way that I can maximize or increase my capacity, I should say? If you want it in a nutshell, if I maximize my current capacity, Allah will increase my capacity. We have this in hadith, numerous hadith that talk about ilm, for example. If you act upon that which you know, Allah will give you knowledge of that which you don't know. But other hadith tell us in the negative sense, if you don't act on what you know, that knowledge will disappear, let alone get more knowledge. Our problem a lot of the time isn't about getting knowledge. We know so much about the religion, but we're not acting on it, unfortunately. There's a very interesting verse in the Quran, Surah Fatir, verse number 10. You can look it up and do tadabbur on this or read the tafsir of it, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the relationship between Iman and Amal. إِلَيْهِ يَسْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. To Him ascends the godly word, the good word. What is the good word? The Mufassirin tells us this is our Iman. Our Iman is ascending. But what is it that's pushing it? It's our Amal. If we don't have the Amal, it's not going to push it higher. If we want to expand our capacity, we have to make sure that we're doing our utmost to fulfill our current capacity. And we have examples of people who have done this. If you look at the example of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, there's a nice hadith that talks about this, which shows how Allah ascended him one rank after another. First He took him as an abd, then as a nabi, then as a rasul, then as a khalil. Then finally He is given the appointment of being an imam. Because every test that is coming His way, He's passing it with full colors. We need to do a bit of analysis. If this is the spiritual new year, where is it that I've fallen short with my current capacity? Where is it that I could have done more? Where is it that I could have done better? If I can find those shortfalls, then inshallah, by fulfilling or filling those gaps, then Allah will also grant me a bigger capacity. This is the mindset that we want to now enter this month of Ramadan with. We want to make sure that we're not falling short. The capacity that we do have, we want to make the most of it. Now that the month of Ramadan has set in, each of us needs to make a resolution in our minds and say, how am I going to spend these months? This month, how am I going to spend the days that lead up to Laylatul Qadr? If I make sure that I am fulfilling the responsibilities that I have with respect to this month as best as I can, when that night comes, it will be an enlarged capacity even for the next year, inshallah. We need to think of ourselves this month as ice sellers in the desert. Every moment that passes, that ice is melting and we're losing our profit. But for every ice that we sell, we've saved that, right? That opportunity cost. We need to think of ourselves, maybe you've gone through this situation yourselves, where you enter the university, you enter school, everybody's got their books out. What's going on? Oh, you didn't know? We've got an exam in 5 minutes, the lesson's about to start. Who would go to the canteen and just say, oh, just have a coffee now? No, you spend every single moment trying to make sure that you spend that time revising, so at least you get somewhere in that exam. Shahr Ramadan is actually a training ground for our entire life. If in this month we are able to stay away from that which is halal normally, then when it comes to the haram, we should be stronger. It's like training on that mountain top where the air is not is very light, it's not as available for us. So that when we come down, it becomes much easier for us. So if we're able to manage our time well during Shahr Ramadan, then inshallah we will also be able to use that as a training ground for our entire lives. Inshallah, from tomorrow, we want to go through a theme. And the talks will be based around this theme. And that is nothing but making the most of this banquet. We want to see how is it that in these 20 days, 30 days, leading up to Laylatul Qadr and beyond, how is it that I can make the most of the banquet of Allah? Inshallah, we will try and present 10 steps. If you're lucky, maybe 12. We'll see how it goes. But 10 or 12 steps, inshallah, as to how we can make the most of this banquet of Allah, one step at a time over the next few nights. I'll end by just requesting one thing. I know everybody's busy working, the heat, getting into the mode of Ramadan takes time. But if we're able to just open Sahifa Sajjadiyah, there's two du'as over there. Dua number 44 and dua number 45. Dua number 44 is the dua that welcomes the month of Ramadan. It gives us an idea of what is this Ramadan all about. Dua number 45 is bidding farewell to the Shahr Ramadan. Now it sounds strange, but the ulama tell us, read that at the beginning of the month. Why? Because we want to see what was the Imam feeling at the end of the month and what was his state. If we see what it is at the beginning of the month, then inshallah we won't fall into that situation where the end of the month comes and I realize that what the Imam went through and what I went through was completely different. My Shahr Ramadan went one way and the Imam's went another way. But if we see in advance, what is my state supposed to be at the end of this month? Then inshallah I'll be able to prepare for it accordingly. It is a long dua, but even if we're able to flick through it during this month at different stages, then inshallah we will try and build our capacity for Laylatul Qadr and beyond. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq to make the most of this month. We ask Allah for the hasty reappearance of our Imam, for the relief of all the oppression around the world. Please let us remember once again all the marhumeen with Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha.